go ahead and start talking about the first matchup of the night. Daystar, the roster coming into this that for me, I am most excited about, probably just because they're the new faces. We don't know a lot about them. We don't know what to expect. We have heard a lot from behind the scenes. ED, their coach, or analyst, whatever you want to I guess label him with. He certainly has given us a little bit of an insight, but Xenox still, it is very much a case of the unknown that we're headed into with this roster.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a sentiment shared probably by many. I think for Daystar, they're a team that when we looked at them on paper, we came into this stage thinking, who could they possibly emulate? In years gone by, for instance, I kind of mentioned the old Seventh Heaven roster. ED thought elsewhere. I can't remember who he referenced as the potential one that they were alike, but obviously the first day
Game
lost
and
to
Gladiators,
Direwolves,
sorry.
Game and Gladiators, yeah, and I think both are pretty similar in that approach. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, lost to Direwolves. A Direwolves team that has got a bit of experience at this kind of level, and then they got the win against Knock Knock, which I'm glad that they did, because had they lost to Knock Knock, it would have been like, okay, well, we would put them on that South Asia level. They're not quite there. They're a little bit above that, but are they Southeast Asia level? They did lose to Direwolves. I'm not too sure where I place Direwolves right now. They're a difficult team to read, having only played Daystar and His Warriors. We haven't seen them play, your GELIDAs, your Furies, your Bleeds, etc. So I think Daystar's got good potential, but I don't see them challenging to be a team that is going to go to Manchester.
No, I think that it's important also just to kind of quote, just keep going back to the conversations that we've already had. AD did quote, of course, they're just hoping to get into this league and really just start a bit more of a trajectory rather than, coming in and finishing first. This is definitely that building stage. This is the foundational stage in which we see so many teams build upon for later greatness. Hopefully they may be one of those teams. But one of the teams that has maybe gone the other way, they were once great, and where do they sit now? GELIDA. Guz, is it fair to say that we're still unsure in their position in this league? Do you feel like you have a firm grip on this?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? Obviously, play day one, an 8-6 OT victory over Fury. So cleanly done in overtime. That was over on Oregon as well. So getting that attacking round in OT was quite impressive from them. Unfortunately, they didn't back it up with the same success against Elevate in play day two. A narrow 7-5 loss in regulation. That over on Cafe. So they've shown some strengths and some weaknesses, I think, so far. Compared to maybe the roster of old, I don't think yet we've seen GELIDA really stand out with a star player that when he's required can be the one to step up and perhaps carry a game, or at least, play off the rest of the team and excel in that fashion. And the EPS scores at the moment reflect that. A 102 and a 101 from Miss Punch and Sap are very respectable, good numbers.
Yes.
But they don't have that big star player that maybe some of the other teams can at times. Back in the day, that was obviously Onigiri. They don't have that to fall back on anymore. So they are a well-rounded roster, but perhaps just lacking that extra gear at the moment. So we might see that come into play later on in the stage. They probably don't need to rely on that tonight. I think as a unit and their fundamentals should be enough to carry them to a convincing victory.
Well, that's really I guess the elephant in the room coming into this game, Xenox. You've got the least experienced team versus what I would probably about to say maybe the most experienced. Would that be fair to say in years gone?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, these guys have been around the block for such a long time now, and pretty much this iteration of it too. When we think about when Onigiri was on this roster, that was a core for quite some time. Then you add in IDFC, and he's been here for some time now as well. So in terms of the core team, yeah, it's a lineup that has that experience, and individually, then even more so when you consider how long they've all been playing, just in general. GELIDA got that opening day win against Fury, but did get kind of bounced back down to earth last play day against Elevate, which was a bounce back down to earth for me. I think I had them maybe winning that game and tried to back them in, but I think that this is a roster, and when they kind of came back originally and they started going through some of those more open qualifiers and playing teams for the first time after their break, they were losing quite a lot of games to teams that were essentially tier 2. So it's taken them some time to kind of get back to their peak form, and with that, they've kind of gotten to a good spot. I don't know if they can go to that next level, though. I think they are behind the likes of a Bleed and a Fury, and potentially even the likes of Elevate, and clearly maybe even a Direwolf. So we have to wait and see. But you're right, they have this experience that's going to help them, especially against those lower teams. In this case, Daystar being one of them.
Yeah, and you have to set the benchmark as of today. You either are beating the teams below you and getting close to the teams above you, or you're just not part of that top four discussion, right? That has to be a clear defining factor. We've got five really competitive teams, and I guess just the unknown nature of Daystar, that's pretty much how it's going to pan out. At least for week two. Things could completely change when we finish tomorrow night. But let's go ahead and look at key players that could potentially change this game. Now, guys, I feel like it's probably more important to note that for GELIDA, they're probably not expecting a single player to make the difference, whereas for Daystar, it very well could.
Yeah, I think in terms of the win conditions in particular for Daystar in this matchup, it is going to largely be a case of Neon. Momo's also not too far behind in EPS rating. Those are the two that need to have really good games to outmatch the overall teamwork that GELIDA are bringing inside of the server. As I mentioned, GELIDA don't necessarily have that big stand-up star player, at least that hasn't been activated. That card hasn't been played in the first two play days. That's why Mr. Punch, top rated at a 102, may look a little bit bad for the team, but it's because they are actually so close together. They're well-rounded. They're all pitching in. So for Daystar, we're looking across to the likes of Neon to have a big game this evening, especially on entry. You can see that share percent 23 is really quite high. So there's going to be a big reliance on him doing well. If that works out, we'll be singing his praises. And if it doesn't, we're going to be obviously critical of that and say that it is a bit of a crutch that they need to work on.
Yeah, he's one of the highest rated in terms of entries, and probably just due to the amount of engagements as well. I guess I don't want to dull it down to its basics, Xenox, but it could. Do you think that the map could define a bit of this conversation? Should we go to something a little more structured? It might be to Daystar's detriment. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's a good observation. I think when you look at a team like Daystar, you would probably fall back into maybe just their frag power, right? They played Chalet against Direwolves on that opening play day, lost that one, so maybe some question marks there, but then played Skyscraper, which can be a bit more fundamentally structured in terms of the way that you're going to defend on that map. They actually got a couple of attacking rounds against Knock Knock, and then were very strong defensively. So for me, when you kind of look at the very small sample size that we have, which is 2 games played for Daystar, one's kind of on a bit of a fluid open map Chalet, the other one is on that kind of structured Skyscraper. So I think that's a good thing. Makes it difficult for us to kind of predict where they want to go. Probably look at these bans though, and Daystar have already banned out Oregon, Labs, and then Clubhouse, leading to me thinking that they probably do want this to be a bit more of an open kind of game.
Yeah, we're going to Chalet as well, so
There you
that
go.
one's going to. I guess look, it could throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. Daystar starting on attack as well. I know it's not really at the moment, guys. It's hard to talk about any map being attacker sided, but if there is going to be a map that you're going to gain somewhat of an advantage on, you're probably looking to your Chalets.
Yeah, decent segue to my main point in this matchup. We have seen Chalet played by Daystar. It was that Direwolves game play day 1. They lost 4-7, and the most damning statistic for them was that their 4 rounds, only 1 was won on the attacking side and 3 defensively. So unfortunately for them in that match, they couldn't quite get it going on the side of the attack. Now that was with the Monty and the Brava banned out, so maybe we'll see some variation there to try and switch things up and back into their favor. But you're certainly right. Chalet at times, again, it's quite veto dependent and also team dependent. It can lean a little bit more towards attack compared to other maps which have trended more defensively over time. And for Daystar, it's going to be critical for them in this matchup. If they replicate what they did against Direwolves, who are probably on a relatively similar pegging to GELIDA, maybe only just edging out by a fraction, we're going to see a similar result. So they have probably gone back to this map after scrimming it for the week and are ready to bring some new ideas to it.
Yeah, this is very much a situation where Daystar are going to have to be on fire to beat a team like GELIDA. Mainly from my experience, Enox, a lot of these discussions for new teams revolve around something that we talked about in OS yesterday. So if you're watching, this is the perfect kind of segue to merge the two regions. But especially for a young up and coming team, the energy that you have in that team, that respect that you have for your colleagues and your teammates, it does define a lot of these teams. And you look back, and I'm going to use 2 very easy examples here: the old Direwolves / Seventh Heaven roster and Gaming Gladiators. They may not have had that experience. They may not have had that wealth of knowledge of the game at this level. But one thing they always had was that energy.
Yeah, you got to have energy. You got to also have the hope that you can make a contest. I think these are the perfect kind of games. It's the perfect kind of stage as well for Daystar. You got nothing to lose. There's no
Yeah.
expectations for this roster. You know, Bleed Esports, for instance, on the opposite end of the spectrum, have to go into every game knowing for a while if they lose, they're going to get clowned on. That's just the reality of it. So there's a bit more of that pressure, even if they can deal with it, which I think Bleed certainly can. For Daystar, they don't have that pressure. I think also
No.
for GELIDA, maybe there is a bit of pressure in this kind of matchup, in
Yeah.
this kind of game, because as you kind of mentioned before, they've got that experience, they've been here before. These are the kind of matchups they need to be winning if they're going to have any kind of conversation for Manchester.
So it's actually probably a good conversation to open up a little bit here, guys. Just as we look to this match, is probably being a game that GELIDA have to win if we want to talk about them in that top four, in that top five. Where does GELIDA sit in the whole realm of this right now? Because it feels like they're not competitive enough to be first, second seed, but they're by no means on the edge of that playoffs. But I mean, they've got to be somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's very difficult for them to enter the discussion for finishing second and getting that favorable seating in the bracket. I'd be quite
Mm.
surprised if they're able to achieve that. I think honestly for Gelita, it's very much a case of just securing top six, which for most of the teams from Southeast Asia should be a given, I would imagine. And then being able to build into the BO3 format. And I think if anything, Gelita's dark horse factor is really going to come alive when it comes to playoffs, right? Because these players have a lot of previous experience in similar formats, in similar situations. They probably don't have as much pressure as the likes of your Bleeds, even Direwolves to an extent, maybe Elevate as well. Fury, of course, to qualify for the major. No one's sitting here thinking that Jalita is going to make it to the major, and that's going to be a factor that they can play into come playoffs. So for now, it's really just about building into that. And a match like this against Daystar just offers an opportunity to put that confidence and make it concrete, because this should be a relatively one-sided game. Not be all and end all either, so there's no point putting too much pressure on it. But the expectation will be for them to go in, execute a game plan, stop Daystar from attacking successfully, which has been done by prior teams, and
Yeah.
replicating that success.
It's prudent definitely to say that throughout the course of the round robin stage for all of these teams, this is it's definitely a building phase, and we've seen it in other regions as well. This is where you need to take the time, obviously, to beat the teams that are below you, but to also trial and test things to really concrete and cement things as we get to closer to those playoffs, which are going to be incredibly important. You're talking about a complete swap. In terms of the best of one to best of three, which really, I mean, in every discussion should always change the approach that we have looking at this. So there is a warrant, I guess, to talk about Jolita coming into this game, and it's like you said, it's not a do or die kind of game, but definitely if they do go on to lose this kind of game where we are saying Daystar should be behind them, then the conversation starts to change a little bit. Then we start to turn the knife a little bit as the play days get on, if we start to see them struggle. And the same thing could be said for Daystars, just because they've had a 7-4 loss over Direwolves, which was close, and then a 7-4 win over Knock Knock. By no means are we going to sit here continuing to praise their efforts on the first two play days if they can't keep it competitive with these other teams in the region. But Jake, just opening this now, it seems like we've got a little bit of time to fill. Are you feeling like this will be a convincing Jolita win? Because obviously Guz has kind of lent that way. Do you think that it's one of those games that's going to be a little closer?
No, I don't think convincing is the right word. I mean, you can use it. No, to each their own. It's not really like otherworldly to say that. I think that Jolita's experience can lend them to being the favorites. That's the way I would kind of lean into this matchup. I also think that there's every kind of chance being it on Chalet, Daystar having already played I don't want to say a similar level team, but Direwolves, Jolita, are they around the same mark potentially? 7-4 and Charlotte opening play day. So you get to kind of, in my mind, get another instance of that particular game here again straight away. So you can kind of look at that game internally as a team and think, where did things maybe go wrong? What could have we done better in that game on Chalet against Direwolves? And the issue was they're attacking half. I mean, they got 3 defensive rounds against Direwolves on a map like Chalet. That's actually not that bad. That might be able to get you in a position to win, but it fell apart on the attack. So that's something in this particular game, and I think Daystar are actually going to be attacking first that they need to be mindful of. What's interesting for me is when you kind of look at some of their individual statistics. I know we've got Momo on our screen at the moment, second highest rated for Daystar behind Neon, who, for what it's worth, is up there in this league. 1.25 rating, insane numbers. One thing that's not insane, though, is his survival rate, 18%. Momo actually on our screen right now, he's got the highest survival rate on this team right now, and it's only 32%. So this is a team
Well.
where they just don't live, and that's a bit of an issue. Maybe it's a case of who they've kind of played against, but they did also play against Knock Knock. So they've got to find better ways of being probably a little bit more efficient as a roster, as a team. If your best player, Neon, has got the worst survival rate, that's not a good recipe.
No, and it's very interesting because we were just saying about do or die for GELIDA in terms of the overarching picture, but clearly in the round to round for Daystar, it is do or die. They either win the round with one player left or they're struggling to get through it. I do feel as though this game has it does have legs in my eyes. Look, maybe I'm just biased because I do love the underdog story. Maybe that's the Australian nature coming out of me. It also might just be the fact that this roster does remind me of a younger game than Gladiators, but I really have this feeling like if this roster can start to click a little bit, as you said, their individuals are performing quite well. I think this has the legs to really be something for them. Whether it's this stage or next stage, I think it's really important to keep your eyes on the performance, and the key part of their performance is the round to round. It's not just the overarching picture. What did the map end up 7-4, 7-5? Was it close? More so for me, it's how close are these rounds getting, and at what part in these rounds are these teams starting to fall apart? Because we've seen it before, guys, where teams can either have a great opening and a horrific end to the round, or vice versa. They don't have those early engagements down pat. They don't have that first phase of the round down pat, but then it starts to, I guess, whittle away and fall apart. I mean, I'm going to throw you under the bus now, guys, and just ask you the blanket question I'm kind of alluding to there. No, where are we seeing things fall? Like, could you potentially see the early game being that win condition for Daystar? Where do they flick in terms of the round to round?
The old WC.
We had to.
He's trying to throw me under the bus, but I'll cook here, so don't worry.
Come on, mate.
I actually think that Daystar may potentially have an edge, especially on entry.
Sure.
Assuming Daystar play and lean into the confidence that they have with these star players, get pre-play drones down and get them in playmaking positions to give your team the advantage. Unfortunately, though, I think even if we see them win the entry game overall in this matchup, it may not make a huge difference. And that's purely because of the amount of experience that GELIDA have as a team, as a unit, this roster in particular, very well versed. And that's where you really shine in the late round. And that has been the biggest difference maker for a lot of the teams that we've covered so far this year, whether it be in OS, in Asia, in South Korea. The early round actually hasn't been a huge determining factor for the late round, especially in some of these more lopsided matches where we see the better team often still being able to close out rounds, whether it be a one-man or even a two-man disadvantage at times. So that's going to be where it's made or broken. If Daystar have good systems in place and good synergy late round, then they should be able to actually mount, a bit of a pressure builder in this particular match. But if that does fall apart and, GELIDA sense or smell blood in the water early on, I think it will be a pretty convincing victory.
See, Michael, I always know you'll come in clutch. That's what I know. I know when I need time to be filled, you'll give it to me. For those of you that were curious, yes, we were waiting for players to jump in the lobby. We're all shocked about this, but we're ready to go. So let's not waste any further time. Dev and Mandy wait in the wings.
Very much, Rob and the guys on the desk, and credit to you. You guys really killed the fill. I know we were waiting for that player for a really long time. But thankfully, we are finally into it. Mandy, we're back on Asia, and we should be having some really solid games tonight. I'm particularly excited for the games later today, but there's still stakes even for ones like this ones. And there are win conditions. There's everything you could possibly have wanted. Daystar here with a chance at a big upset. And of course, GELIDA, after losing their game last week, really need every single point they can get.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If there are any points that you want to take, it's going to be against your teams like Daystar. Jumping straight into this one should be an exciting one for GELIDA. I think they're very much in contention of that top kind of spot maybe not top 1 spot or top 2 spot, but they should be in contention for at least the playoffs and to make a pretty deep run in the bracket, as the desk had prefaced earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Chalet, though, I feel like we've seen a lot of Chalet this stage, Mandy, and I'm really enjoying the way it shapes up with the current meta. We've seen quite a bit of a switch around in the way that teams are taking this. I think as well, Bliss particularly have introduced a lot into the OS meta. Fury have introduced a lot into the Asia meta returning from SI, and I'm keen to see how that has trickled down into these other teams. I think particularly GELIDA, obviously a lot of experience on that team. I really hope they are on the forefront of this meta.
I mean, I think in general, we like to consider the Six Invitational like the meta-defining event of the year, right? Once that comes through, all the ideas roll out early on before stage 1. Not just that, but in this region, we have 2 teams that attended that very event, right? So they're going to come back, introduce all these ideas into the region, bring it into scrims, bring it into practice, and all these other teams are going to go and then experience what's going on in the server in that way. And, you know, then they can make their own interpretation of it inside the server as well. Dokkaebi being banned out is like, honestly, fair enough, if you ask me. Dokkaebi very much a prevalent pick here in Asia. We've seen some people go absolutely crazy on the SMG12, Joe in particular from Direwolves. And yeah, it just seems to be such a staple pick at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing the Dokkaebi taken out, the Twitch taken out. I'm a bit confused by that Twitch ban. I'm not really sure what to expect out of this one. We also have had a bit of a substitution. Momo Rins has been taken out, and Jack has come in. So you'll see in the top left-hand corner of your screen. New player. Never seen Jack play before. So I do wonder how he'll go.
Yeah, me too. I mean, when I think of Momorin and what he has been able to do in the past couple play days here in Southeast Asia, or South Asia, sorry. No, it's not even South anything. It's just Asia League now, isn't it? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, technically SEA, but...
Yeah, it is technically SEA. Yeah, I feel like Momo has had a pretty big impact so far on Daystar. He's the one that's always picking like a Solace, going for really aggressive plays, running out, being a really strong front lane player. And now they've come and substituted in for Jack. Now, Jack has immediately gone and picked Ash, which makes me think that they've substituted a frontline player out for one in. So I don't think it'll be that much of a difference.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, as we dig into Chalet, we're seeing a couple of these big impact operators left in. The Azami taken out, though. 10 seconds. Does affect these power positions. I actually think this might be one of the first Wardens I've seen this stage. I guess occasionally we see it picked for site play, but it's very different to last stage and previous times where you chuck like a big fragger on the Warden. These days, the Goyo's actually got a better scope. He's got the ACOG. You really want to run that.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, well, ECH, you never count him out, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like with Capitao on the board as well, he could be on the money with the Warden pick if he's in the right place at the right time, right? If they go for something that's pretty execute heavy, the smokes go down, pretty popular type of execute in this bomb site, which by the way is down in the basement. You never know, the Warden could come useful.
Right, Exothermic goes out, the impact trick, nice little lineup, but you can see most teams these days at this level know that you have to put your Exothermic on the right-hand side, otherwise it is vulnerable to that impact trick. So I think sooner or later, Mandy, we'll probably see teams give up on impact tricking because at this level, people aren't falling for it. However, Mr. Punch actually falls really early. I'm assuming that was a really deep angle in through lobby, perhaps. Can't quite see where Mr. Punch died. Daystar have actually made really solid progress here.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only have they gotten the main breach open, but they are now starting to make some control happen on the other side of the map too. ZCH up above does have a feeling that there is someone on this side of the map inside the big garage. There is vertical for that, and so Daystar have got to be careful as they make their way in through the basement. This is a big roam from DCH. I'm not exactly sure what he is trying to achieve with this one. Maybe he thinks they're going for a top-down clear, but really all he's done is left the site completely vacated.
Yeah, okay. Well, speaking of the site, there's been quite a skirmish going on up here. And it does leave, arguably, GELIDA worse for wear, as they do have their roamer still upstairs in DCH. But unfortunately, Daystar weren't even able to move into site, as I believe that was a Vulcan canister. I don't think that was one of the Capitals fight yet. Definitely a Vulcan canister that detonated. Really nice setup from GELIDA, does salvage that position. Of course, Sapper's now retaken his spot. First fire from Capital goes out, but Sapper withstands it and does find his pick. KZB, the 1v2. He's been taunted now. DCH has told him, hey, don't forget I'm here in a crossfire. He's actually going to relocate off that crossfire now. And the smokes can be utilized. Fat lot of good that's going to do against a Warden. This is where you just peek him anyway, DCH. The Diffuser cold on the ground. There's not a lot that KZB can do here. He is going to smoke up once again that shield, but he's going to get shot through the smoke. There you go. That Warden pick coming into fruition nicely. 30 seconds. He's essentially just baiting for a pick, and I don't think GELIDA are giving him anything. DCH locks it in, and there you go. Funnily enough, the Warden was impactful after all. Good start for GELIDA.
What did I tell you, Dev? We spoke about it right at the beginning, and it was the final kill. That's pretty good from us. Yeah, Daystar looking to try and make something happen on the bomb site about midway through the rounds, but unfortunately not quite able to land the execute. And by the time that they did recompose towards the late rounds, DCH had come back into the bomb site, made that a 2v2, and then we saw the fantastic use of the Warden gadget right at the end there. So good job from GELIDA to hold on early on in the series, but it's only one round. Still got a couple more to go.
And I will give credit to Daystar, Mandy. Like, that was a really cool execute, an early execute. I'm trying to remember, there was a team that did that yesterday. I think it might have been Odium in the OS League. We saw a really early execute on Wine Basement. As soon as a breach was open, you find one pick and you just collapse. And I think that's the strategy that a lot of teams are employing these days, or a tactic, probably more accurately describing it. And yeah, people are looking to be opportunistic. It's what you've talked about a lot, I know, Mandy. Just opportunism is the name of the game in this current meta. You look for that window and you just take it.
That's my opinion, at least. I don't know about you, Dev, but I feel like that's the secret meta going on at the moment. Or maybe not so secret anymore now that we've played out quite a fair bit with stage 1. And I think it's very much played out here in Asia as well, and to a pretty great extent, especially when you've got a lot of these enabling operators on the board.
Would be inclined to agree with you. So Dining is the second bomb site taken for GELIDA. I think that where we sit at the moment is that you want to aim for, at worst, a 3-3 on your defense of Chalet. Historically, maybe a bit more attacker favored, but hard to say these days. I think GELIDA getting that opening defense is a huge booster for them. But yeah, they're certainly going to need to keep up that momentum. The game does seem to be quite momentum-based at the moment, as we've seen in Stage 1 thus far. But Daystar, they've been quite effective at setting up for these executes, quite good at taking map control. At the moment, they actually haven't got many boots in the building. They're constantly posturing and reposturing around the map, deciding where this execute might come from.
Yeah, Daystar here just probing out the map at the moment, seeing whether they can get an easy way in so far, but I think at that point they've realized that the side on Solar is a little more open to them with the utility they've got in their hands. They don't necessarily want to go in for a sweep across the map. Instead, they can inject themselves straight into the top floor. Keep in mind, the bomb site is actually down on the ground floor. Early engagement as well on the other side of the map. Inside a bar, here goes Neon in through West Main as well. The door is barricaded going into the bomb site. It's all falling apart here for GELIDA.
Yeah, it really has, but at least Mr. Punch has found something, and he is the Echo. So late round, DCH is currently spectating one of those Yokais and can call for him. Mr. Punch is actually going to go for the kill rather than trying to deny with the drone, but he, believe it or not, is starved for information and doesn't know that player is just around the corner. IDFC also starved for info, and now in this 1v3 is actually struggling to find himself any kills or any ability to deny the plant. The barricade is still up, in fact. This is a bit of a rough ask. I don't think it's going to work. Mirror window has been dispatched with, and he will be wallbanged from down under the hatch. Beautiful start there from Daystar. Hijack is fired up, and it's a really solid second round for them. A really way to get themselves on the scoreboard.
Yeah, well read round as well from Daystar. I think they identified at some point through the mid rounds that the ground floor was essentially pretty much vacated and they could jump in, find the entry kills going into the bomb site. At the same time, they were zoning out players from looking down in through the hatch and playing the vertical by having players on rappels, like on Solar, like on double window, and essentially forcing those gunfights to come through as they attack straight into the bomb site, put their focus on the ground floor, force the GELIDA players to come on back, and they actually managed to cut them off in those engagements. Really well played there from Daystar to identify the point of weakness going into the bomb site and then go for it as soon as they saw it.
Not sure what happened there for a second, but yeah, here's a replay of that round. Again, very explosive from Daystar. I would have loved to have checked, Mandy, at what point in the round, like what was the number on the clock when Daystar went for those explosive executes in both rounds? Because historically, you're doing it with under a minute left, maybe around 40 seconds to 30 seconds left. Worse if you have less time than that. But Daystar seem to be continually doing it very early in the round.
I think it's fun. I don't know. I think it's really good from Daystar that if they feel like they have a win condition of the round that they can unlock, or some kind of weakness that they can inject themselves straight into, that they'll go for it. Now, sometimes I think that could come to bite them back if they go and misread the situation. They might overcommit to that plan. That's my only worry for them, as we kind of saw them do a little bit down in the basement. But, you know, in an instance like the previous round, it certainly worked out for them. I think if Daystar can show that they can be calculated in their reads and actually do things with intention rather than just for the sake of being fast, then I think it's going to matter a lot. Kotley does just get away with his life, the C4 not quite sinking onto him, but DCH is going to find one elsewhere.
I like that. Both of those players actually teamed up together, and
dear.
another explosive execute from Daystar. What a shot from Jack. Unfortunately, his previous fight landed onto his teammate, so despite everything, despite the site being completely seceded by GELIDA, Daystar are down a player, and also DCH is below with the Solus. Has got an impact as well, so when it comes to denying plant, GELIDA have plenty of options. I don't believe there's any C4s left. Mr. Punch has not got his available, I believe. Can't see it right now. But of course, KZB and Jack need to try and decide how they're going to play this one. They've droned out down below, and Jack is still up here. They're actually forfeiting that site control. Now retake. I'm a bit confused. Oh, there's no diffuser. That explains it. What is going on? The diffuser's been all the way entrenched the whole round.
At this point, they are, what it looks like, trying to find a blind spot in the bomb site from the vertical play of the Solus. Both C4s have been used. There's only one impact. So whether Daystar know that or not, that's the question. But nevertheless, they are going to try and make their way on into the bomb site. Legion Mine does keep Jack at bay for a little bit, but there goes KZB.
Surely there's an opportunity here to plan the desk. Oh,
Ooh,
wow.
nice
That is the
shot.
player you want to take down. Jack is very sharp. That's 3 very
He can
crisp
plant here.
headshots we've seen. And he will indeed plant. The Solus below has been taken out. IDFC looking for his way in, but Mr. Punch wins his one. Now he
I think
decides
everything's
to go
Rio.
around. Yeah, the full wall is Rio, which makes it a bit more difficult
no,
to
it's
take down
not.
Jack. Jack knows about this position. He is taken down. Perfect crossfire from GELIDA on the retake. Very confusing round once
That was
again.
very strange.
But
Yeah.
look, they get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an odd one there. I really expected all 4 of those office walls to be closed for some reason there, and I thought, what is going on? And he turns around and there's a mirror window on the wall. It's, interesting there from GELIDA, but it works out for them anyway. Daystar, with the numbers disadvantage, made what I thought was a pretty valiant effort to jump back into the bomb site. Jack was pretty explosive in that round, not only finding a kill, a team kill, and the kill through the vertical, but also getting the plant down. Wasn't quite able to close that one out. Great crossfire from the remaining 2 players of GELIDA to close it out in that situation.
I'm pretty impressed that GELIDA were able to redeem that round, and even the first round as well, Mandy, because every single round so far, Daystar have succeeded in some form of an execute. Not saying it was successful in the end, but they have always succeeded in making that execute happen. And it does feel like these days, a lot of teams fail before they even get to that point. Like their execute relies on having 5 players alive, or it relies on certain map control, and they never complete those steps before they go for it. Daystar are just ready to explode on the site at a moment's notice. And by God, do they have the gun skill to back it up? Even Hijack, I'm sorry, even Jack, not Hijack. Oh my God, that's confusing.
That's very
Jack,
confusing.
the new player, the sub, the fill-in, actually hit some really gnarly shots last round. So this is a very fun team to watch, that's for sure.
I think there's a big element in Rainbow Six where it's sometimes just don't overthink it, right? Like,
100%.
you don't always need to complete every single one of your steps, and especially in the current way that the game is being played, where there's so much utility and setup that you have to deal with. At some point, you have to like pick your battles and choose something to cut a corner in, right? That it's not, for example, like you're going for a roam clear, yeah, but you don't want to like drone out every single room. You bring Dokkaebi and you clear out a room with a logic bomb or something like that, right? It's like finding small 1%ers that I think that you can use to try and like expedite the process of something happening. And I think with Daystar, like the combination of operators that they're bringing that are so self-sufficient and playmaking operators, and the way that they're positioning themselves, just seeking opportunity, is one way to go about that, and I think they're doing it really well. So here goes Mark, down from below, is able to take down the entry from down in the basement onto Kotley. Doubling down is DCH as well onto Jack. An attempt at an explosive mini execute onto the basement doesn't quite work out for Daystar this time around, and GELIDA will hold on.
You cannot discredit their gusto, Daystar. You really can't. But I think GELIDA have the read. I tell you what, Mandy, if I was playing against Daystar, I would have lost every one of these rounds in a very dominant fashion. Like, the way that they play their pace, it's so impressive. But clearly, GELIDA know this team very well. Of course, both teams from the Southeast Asia region would have played each other quite a few times. In fact, the last time they played, GELIDA also got the better of Daystar back when they were API, I believe, at the time. And that was a 7-3-7-4 in the VO3 in the qualifiers for this tournament, and it seems to be going the same direction now as well, as yet another one bites the dust for Daystar, a 2v5, and this is realistically the only round so far they have not been able to form some kind of execute. Nice big pick from KZB. That to be attempted to refrag, and indeed that refrag comes through, all up to Neon, and surely that's got to be the round done and dusted. Mark will finish him off. The most dominant we've seen so far for GELIDA, as they starting to look really solid and developing a nice lead.
Yeah, I think GELIDA are starting to get the read on how Daystar play this out. They're seeking the entries early, making sure that every entry point close to the bomb sites, especially the ones adjacent to the bomb site, are being covered by a player of GELIDA. That's why we saw so many players starting out down in the basement, players starting out in library, and then on the bomb site itself, anticipating that that early entry close in on the bomb site will happen. I liked the idea from Daystar to send all 5 of their players to try and collapse in on these players in the basement at first, but, you know, unfortunately losing these first 2 picks meant that they sort of had to go for a last-ditch effort. A couple of them trying to crouch walk into the building. Didn't quite work out. GELIDA hold on.
We did already see Daystar play Chalet once against Direwolves, and they struggled a little bit on their attack, and we're seeing that form again here. So, I don't know. I'm not incredibly optimistic about the rest of this half. However, if they flip over to defense, they did win 3 out of their 6 defenses against Direwolves, so that's something to go off of. But of course, with that in mind, if they continue that form on their defense, they do need to pick up their attack in order for a chance of winning any points here. Otherwise, the game will be over. So 3 at the minimum, I think, is what Daystar need to shoot for here. And 3 at the minimum, 3 at the maximum is what they can achieve on this half. That would mean going back-to-back after that tactical timeout. I don't know what tactical maneuvers they can make now, Mandy, but they need to implement them fast.
I'm wondering what is being said to them in that tactical timeout, because I don't mind the brand of Rainbow Six that Daystar are trying to play, trying to exploit a weakness early on, be explosive, that type of thing. But I think there is an element of if you're cutting corners and trying to do something really quickly, that's not that well thought out, it's not going to work out. I don't think we've seen them do that two or 3 times in a row now, right? So I think there's an opportunity here for them to slow things down, actually do things a little more methodically, commit themselves to a plan as a 5, and maybe if they can show us a bit more depth in their play style, the ability to slow things down and do a little bit more problem solving, that could be a pretty interesting development, I think, for this team, if they're able to achieve that, although I don't know what's being said in that tactical timeout, so I can't say for sure. It's a good drone.
Yeah, what's going on here? Are they... Oh, they're faking it? Pretended to run away? Now he's coming back? Clearly, Daystar are intending to go for this, but it looks like Neon is going to prep the concussion, which should prevent this from working. They're changing their minds, though.
I wonder why they're doing that, because surely a Capital Bolt would get far in enough for the Bandit trick to not work there.
Even the Zephyr, right? Like the concussion.
Yes, I was thinking that as well. Like cancel animation on that.
Oh
dear.
Sapper!
Oh dear. That's not what you want to see.
Embarrassing. I think that was a double impact on himself. That is very unfortunate, mate. Well, at least Mr. Punch will revive him. Unfortunate we caught that on camera, mate, but here we go.
I think there was a Claymore out on that window and he was trying to impact it from inside, but, you know, not quite able to land this. This is a little overthought, I think, from Daystar. They tried to go for the main wall, thought they couldn't do it, and now they're going to go for the back instead. But at an attempt of an entry, they've been shut down pretty early. That's very dangerous, again, from Neon. Big risk. One-way angle, very much short. Not one way, but defender-sided jump in for IDFC on the other side. It's looking a bit scary in this one, Dev. Not much hope.
Yeah, it's funny because the first 4 rounds you were praising Daystar for not overthinking things, and they take their tactical timeout, gives them time to think, and they think a little bit too much. They forget that IDFC is waiting in the wings in Kitchen. He cooks up a storm, 3 big kills, leaving KZB all alone. one consolation frag, but at this point, no diffuser and just about no hope of making this one work.
I think GELIDA have the formula figured out by now, to be honest, Dev. I think they've realized what they need to do is just play into the early game. You know, you don't want to be sitting AFK somewhere on cameras or on the other side of the map. You just want to be close to the bomb site. Oh dear. You want to be close to the bomb site, anticipating the entry to come through, leading into that early game engagement, and I think you know they've just done it so well from here on out. Looking at the breach early, IDFC is anticipating the ground floor entry coming in from Trophy, for example, holding on to West Main that he's doing right now. It just feels like GELIDA have really got the read on what Daystar have tried to do.
Got a lot of hope for the rest of this half for Daystar, and therefore for the rest of the game as we're up 4-1 in GELIDA's favor, and the tactical timeout from Daystar has been thwarted handily. One last chance, Mandy, but I'm going to be honest, it's not looking great. Those first few rounds, there were a lot of shining moments. I'd say the first 3 rounds could have been 3-0 in favor of Daystar, but GELIDA, they started with an inkling of how Daystar would play, and that has turned into a full-fledged PhD on exactly how to counter this playstyle from Daystar. We need to see change, and we need to see it fast, and even then, it's only going to mean one more round of attack for Daystar.
I mean, yeah, if you Daystar one round at a time, right, and if it's one last round of attack, you may as well try and land this one. I think that last round showed inklings of Daystar trying to change things up and, you know, have a think about it, play a little bit more slow. But then again, I think, yeah, overthought once they tried to change things in the mid-round. It didn't feel like they had much of a plan B to fall back on. And IDFC had a big round here inside of dining, or sorry, inside a kitchen, jumping into Trophy. Yeah, big round from GELIDA. It just feels like you said it exactly right. They very much studied the art of how to defeat Daystar now.
Yeah. Well, I want to have hope, Mandy. I'm starting to... I'll be honest, I was really hopeful those first 3 rounds, and now that hope's all dissipated. And I want to get something back for Daystar. They really do need to start taking some scalps away from these big teams. Daystar, of course, in their first game, they played Direwolves, and they had a valiant effort, but they did lose. It was on this map as well, 7-4. And I do think, my take, of the 5 big teams in this league right now, I think Direwolves is probably the one that you're most likely to be able to steal points off of. And GELIDA the second most likely. So if they can't do either, I wouldn't back them in against Bleed or Elevate or Fury. And at that point, they're really just going to steal their points off the 2 bottom teams. They might be able to make playoffs, but they haven't played Hasib's Warriors yet, and that 6th place is not guaranteed.
I don't mind this change of approach a little bit here for Daystar. They've decided instead of going in for a direct jump in near the bomb site, they're going to sweep across the map instead. So Neon has entered from very much the opposite side of where the bomb site is. He's gotten nice and early off the back of some pre-placed drones that his teammates were holding on to, and now they're just taking a step back, doing a bit more drone work, trying to creep their way in towards the map slowly. Hijack has found his way inside of lobby as well. A little bit of a dangerous spot to sit in as they think that maybe someone could be inside of the basement, but nevertheless, they are going to try and contest the wall from here on out.
A lot of flank watching and not a lot of active roam clearing. Oh wow, Mr. Punch misdroned. They want him to move up. They want him to make a play. Daystar are being incredibly slow. Mr. Punch likely has information on the back of Valkyrie cameras. There's no IQ on the board. He's inching his way forward. They've been watching this angle for 2 whole minutes, and now nobody is. He misses his opportunity. Unfortunate timing. And the E1D locks him in place. Will they hunt for this kill? They will, but it's just one player. Mr. Punch may well win this. Deagle in hand. Neon doesn't want to overpeak. It's a standoff, a Mexican standoff, but coming from behind, Jack gets him. And finally, Daystar have the opening they've been looking for.
That was a great pinch from Daystar. Now, the worry that I've got for them here is that, yes, they can get the wall open. There's nothing that's going to contest that unless there's a mute drum on that wall and they don't know how to get rid of it. But aside from that, once they actually get inside of the bomb site, there might be vertical play that could be in the hands of GELIDA here because they haven't gone and cleared out the top floor and actually put some pressure down inside of office. 30 seconds left to go. A flashbang is going to be sailed in, but no one to follow up just yet.
Numbers advantage amidst the executes. That does not guarantee a round win. Big C4 from Mark. KZB finds one, but Sapper holds down on site. That Goyo canister does make things difficult, and Mark is going to find another one as well. With KZB on the ground, Neon is left with it all to do. stave off a devastating half, and he will go down handily. GELIDA Esports 5-1, a domination of defense on Chalet.
Yeah, really another well-coordinated round there from GELIDA. They realized that the execute was coming on through. They didn't actually have the vertical set up, and so they recalled everybody back to the bomb site. It just ended up being a massive brawl on the ground floor inside of the bomb site itself, and GELIDA came out on top. Great power positions being held by them, crossfires. As soon as that execute came on through, it was an absolute bloodbath.
That makes 4 rounds in a row as well, Mandy. The last 3 have been completely uncontested. Daystar has been asleep since round 4. They've taken their tactical timeout. It's used. It's gone. They're 4 rounds in deficit. GELIDA only need 2 rounds of attack to lock away a regulation win and the full 3 points out of this game, which they sorely need for a shot at contesting those top 2 spots in the playoffs that let you skip a match. That is where the priority is for GELIDA, no doubt about it. There is only 1 spot in Manchester for this Asia region where we realistically have 3 to 5 teams that could very well have an impact if they would go to the major. So very much a different situation for both of these teams. GELIDA gunning for the top 2 spots. Daystar hoping to stay out of the bottom 2 and qualify for playoffs at all. And their chances of doing that are not looking too amazing right now, Mandy, if they can't even put up a fight against GELIDA.
I think when you go back and you reflect on what Daystar has tried to achieve in the league so far, I mean, I know that Rob went and spoke to ED for a little bit. I'm not sure if you did as well, Dev. But I think, you know, ED prefaced it pretty well there. I think Daystar just want to have this opportunity to be in Tier 1, grab as much experience as they can, at least look competitive in the game. 1-5 scoreline, I think, doesn't quite do justice to some of these rounds, if you ask me, Dev. But like, honestly, I feel like, yeah, Daystar look like they're trying things. They look like they're having a crack at it. And while they might not be in contention for top 4 or even making playoffs here, they might just scrape into playoffs. I personally feel like they've achieved a lot of their goals. I don't know what you think, Dev, but to me, as a new team going into it, oh, that's a bit dangerous. Wow, nice shots from Neon onto IDFC, who had info on him, but was unable to land the shots back.
Yeah, look, I think you make a fair point, Mandy. Daystar perhaps weren't shooting for the stars, and so if they land, I don't know, on the moon, then maybe they won't be too upset. I don't think the moon would be playoffs, but...
Is the Daystar just the sun?
That's deep, man. That's actually so deep.
Is that deep, or is that like an actually kind of thing? You know what I mean?
I reckon it sounds deep. I'll give you that. But they are forming up an attack, GELIDA, this Master, and we've got obviously the Monsi. But yeah, losing IDFC, big fragger, top fragger on the team at the moment, tied with Mark at least. Yeah, big one to lose early. Still plenty of pieces to get this one done. But these roamers have been quite frustrating. And I do wonder how many Valkyrie cameras are still alive and able to enable these flanks.
I think they can just plant here, no? There's no one inside. Okay, now there's people inside of Piano. They can no longer get this plant down. That's quite dangerous from here on out. But, you know, for a moment there, smokes are going down. There's Warden on the other side. Okay, you probably don't want to be fighting into a Warden here. GELIDA are absolutely battling their way through this regardless. What has just gone on?
Wow. Okay. That is a dominant round and a half there. That is how you execute on Master Office for GELIDA. Completely locked out. Even the C4 opportunity below dismantled by a player watching from lobby through the open wall of dining. That is how you attack onto that bomb site. And this is a masterclass from GELIDA, up 6-1 over Daystar. 5 match points before them. They are speed running Chalet.
Well, I mean, you blink and you miss it for that attack. It just felt like they were on one half of the map, and then at some point they realized that the bomb site was super open. No one had really that much control inside of dining, and then Daystar, by the time they made their rotation into Piano, which was, you know, their opportunity for them to actually deny the execute from coming in through, that was just too late. By then, GELIDA had already walked their way on in. It just felt like they'd run over the bomb site completely by the time that Daystar reacted to it.
I mean, here you see it was a 4v3 or a 4v4, and then with a few moments, that diffuser being forced down, and everyone was covered off. Yikes.
Yes.
Daystar they've had one attack, Mandy. One attack. And they had 6 tries. GELIDA have had 1 try, and they did it straight away. Now Daystar, bit nervous. Like, where do you go after that? You've got destroyed on Dining. Sorry, Master. Dining is very similar to Master. It involves contesting a lot of the similar map control, and so as a result, I think they'd be scared to do the same. They go to Bar, and we find the Daystar are up against quite a lineup. Blitz, Ying, Capitao, Grim, and Lion. It's just about one of the most oppressive lineups you could be versing.
Yucky, that's not a fun one if you're on the side of Daystar. There goes the Lion Scans to ring out, the flashbangs to sail on through as well. I can see RDFC with his Blitz shield activated. Where is he gone? Leading the charge somewhere along the map. Oh no, they actually haven't gone in at all. They're just trying to pull a reaction from Daystar.
Bit of a bait. Here comes some smoke to try and enable some entry. IDFC goes in for a brief moment. He spots one player at bot blue. He's somehow ducked and weaved in the side. He spots one player, does take him down, finishes him off with a knife. Amidst the chaos, 2 kills have been found by Daystar, but critical map control as well for GELIDA as the Blitz is in amongst the site. Diffuser, nowhere to be seen. Outside the bar window and still control from Daystar up above, vertical dominance of that position. In the default plant spot, how will they get to it while Neon is watching from above?
Oh, that's a great smoke
from IDFC could enable it. He spots him for a second. 2 players up above. The Blitz spotted by the Solus, who can call out that position as long as that shield is held by the Blitz. Sapper covering one cross, but the vertical from above once again. What an impact! Could this be Daystar staying alive for a moment longer?
Here goes DCH, who snuck his way in through lobby, seen by the camera now. Sapper's going to take the engagement onto a player who's rotated all the way down into the basement. Opportunity now to take another engagement onto Ivy. KZB mistiming his. DCH on the back has realized that there is a player in lobby. That's Neon on the other side. Engagements come through soon. He lands the shots with the Frost. Now it's on to 1 versus 1. Sapper versus Jack for the map.
Jack's at the bottom of blue stairs, a long way away from where Sapper plants in bar. But very exposed is the position. Sapper gets it off. Immediately walks into that goo mine. Rotating now into bar. He would have heard that pull out. Pretty sure Jack would have heard that goo mine pull out. Round in the corner. Sapper's looking the wrong way. Flicks to it. But he can't land enough shots. Prone on the ground. They both are. The hip fire gets it across the line for GELIDA. Domination on Chalet. Daystar dead to rights. 7-1.
And a chaotic end to the map, but was it chaotic through the entire map? It certainly was for Daystar. Explosivity left, right, and center, but GELIDA come out on top.
For it to end in a 1v1 felt fitting. A 7-1 scoreline did not explain the story of that matchup. The first 3 rounds were really solid from Daystar. Unfortunately, they only managed to snag one of them. Even the final round of the game could very well have been Daystar's. Could have been 4 rounds that they had in that match, and yet only 1 they managed to grab. What a game that was. A speed run. I hope the desk is ready, because you got to break it down.
Oh no.
You right, Rob?
Just had to break it down for him. And guys, do you care to break it down for me, please? Give me something. Give me all you got.
Well, look, in the pre-show, I made the case, right, that there's a potential for chaos to be thrown into this game by Daystar and the ability to perhaps overwhelm GELIDA. However, I was confident in GELIDA's ability to withstand that pressure, and we saw it in the first half. There was every opportunity in multiple of those rounds for Daystar to produce something, and they just continued to get shut down. GELIDA were really, really good in playing into that, and then were not afraid to just bring it out on the match point round there, 6-1 up. Explosivity on towards the site. It got stalled out, and even still, when it comes down to an unfavorable 1 versus 1, Sapper, his position was known. He still wins that out. So at every single point of that game where Daystar just needed that extra 1%, to get a round over the line, to get a result over the line, to push it to a closer result. Unfortunately, they just couldn't do it. And GELIDA, to their credit, again, withstood that pressure really well.
And Xenox, that's probably the difference that we expected coming into this. Obviously not a 7-1 difference, but we did expect there to be a difference in those critical moments, in those opening engagements. And I mean, it's just been on display for all to see, unfortunately, for Daystar.
Yeah, really disappointing. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I expected a little bit more from them. I probably wasn't coming into this saying that they have to win or win well or, even get it to like a 7-5, at least a 7-3, 7-4. So a little bit disappointing from Daystar, especially being on a map that they've already played this stage against, I think, a pretty similar level team in Direwolves. So back to the drawing board for them. Clearly, as we kind of said in the pre-show discussion, at least from my perspective, that they're above South Asia, but they're probably below Southeast Asia in that middle land. And so they're going to have nights like this where they're going to get taught a lesson, and then they're going to have other nights where they might catch someone off guard.
You learn most from your losses. That's I think the key takeaway for Daystar here. They have to be able to take what they've learned from their loss against Direwolves, and obviously Direwolves at the moment is probably on the back end of the conversation of the top tier Southeast Asian rosters at the moment. It doesn't mean that won't change, but it's the same thing as well when it comes down to the conversation around GELIDA. They came into tonight, guys, as favorites, and we needed a confident performance from them because look, their start has been a little bit wavering, but tonight this may be the statement that we need for them moving forward. This needs to be that momentum driver.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I don't know how much momentum they'll be able to gather just from this isolated BO1 against a team that's arguably probably going to be, slotting in 5th, 6th, but it is still a confidence builder at that. I think they'll take from it what they can. Chalet is certainly now being banked as a map that they're confident on, and again, I suppose the overarching storyline was that they were able to withstand the pressure and the mind games that Daystar had to try and introduce in this game to get it across the line. So the fact they were able to do that and in a very, very confident and convincing fashion bodes well for them. And again, it doesn't change my perspective on them probably not finishing top 2, but certainly keeps that possibility alive.
It keeps the conversation interesting, and I guess it opens things up a little bit more for the performances of the future for GELIDA. We've obviously got a little bit to go off, but we've actually got an interview to go off. So let's welcome in Sapper for another time. This time, no rock references. Sapper, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine. How about you guys?
Yeah,
Good, Sapper.
Can you hear me?
We're happy, mate. We just saw a 7-1 victory from GELIDA, the expected favourites in this one. Of course we are. How did you feel like the team performed in today's match?
Today we performed really well. Like, it's more than that I expect to be. Like 7-1 against their team. But GG, by the way.
Yeah, Sapper, I think the result was not one that we expected in terms of the scoreboard, winning in that fashion was quite dominant. How do you view Daystar? Where do you kind of rank them? In your eyes, are they below the other Southeast Asian teams but above South Asia?
In my opinion, I think that compared to the other team in the league, so they will be below than like Elevate, Devil, or Bleed, and Fully, something like that. So it's okay, but we try hard every single game.
In that last round, Sapper, you and the team went for a really crazy rush, and then you won the 1 versus 1. How exciting was it to pull that off?
I really excited, but I have to hold my breath, and then think a lot.
Look, a good performance for you and the rest of the squad. Now, obviously, moving forward, it's the best of 1 system. The round robin, that's all good. But come playoffs, we're into best of 3s. What are you doing to prepare for the finals?
So best of 3, there are so many important things to prepare. Your physical, everything, your band, your food before the game start. So best of 3 is gonna be more tough.
Yeah,
it's gonna be more
definitely.
difficult for sure.
Now, Sapper, you gave us a good sign off last time. Is there anything you'd like to say before we let you go?
Today, nothing. I didn't prepare anything. Today, let's say thank you for all of you guys. Thank to the GELIDA fans and everything. So that's all.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sapper. Best of luck, and we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sapper.
That's again. I mean, I don't really think that there's too much to it. I think that GELIDA, as long as they continue to show this kind of dominance in the server, Xenox, we will get what we expect. But he did say something in the interview then that I've actually never thought of before, and that is your food preparation for a best of 3. I've never thought of that before. It's you're fueling up for it could be 3-4 hours long. You just don't know.
How many best of 3s have you been playing in there, Rob? So I can't blame you.
Look, back in my day,
There's a casted one either for a while
you
too.
just I have not cast the best. You know what? I don't think I've even cast the best of 1 recently, guys. It's probably been 2 or 3 years. Oh my god, it actually has been. That really is a throwback. But we're talking about me way too much now. Our next matchup, look. Obviously, we expect Bleed to be winning this game, guys. But they go toe to toe with Direwolves. Do Direwolves have enough skin in the game to make this interesting?
I mean, 2 big orgs, 2 big names. If you follow Asia, you know these 2 teams. So it does, you know, set the stage for an exciting matchup. Unfortunately, Bleed are just so damn good. It's difficult to envision a world in which Star Wars are able to get it across the line.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It is a tough one. But there's, I mean, look, it's the Asia League, right? It's competitive. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close, or it'll be an absolute stomp. That's the beauty, isn't it? That's the beauty. You just don't know. But one thing I do know is we're ready for a break. We'll see you on the other side for Direwolves when they take on Bleed.